The Commanders have a fresh new logo, but on the field are in search of their identity. This offseason, I think they could find it.
Perfect.
The Washington Commanders have a number of very young and talented players, with two star players on both sides of the football, being defensive end Chase Young, the leader of that very stout front four pass rush, and on the offensive side of things, wide receiver Scary Terry McLaurin, a very fast, very secure-handed wide receiver for this Washington Commander football team. But they've also got a number of very good players alongside of them. You've got linebacker Cole Holcomb. You've got safety Landon Collins. You've also got Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, all on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, Logan Thomas, a very sturdy tight end who has very good hands. Curtis Samuel, and of course, Antonio Gibson. But they've also got a very good head coach in Ron Rivera, very motivational, strong leadership mentality. And Washington has a number of very good pieces that they can build a team around. However, they do happen to have a few holes that this team does still need to address. Starting off at quarterback, the Washington football team does not quite have a future at the moment at the position. The most important position on the offense, particularly in Washington's offense, as they've gone through a number of quarterbacks for these last few years. I don't foresee them having a future long-term anyway with quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then also quarterback Taylor Heineke, who did see some success. However, it does not seem like Washington's long-term solution. At least the franchise seems a little bit non-committal as far as Taylor Heineke being their guy, no matter how well he seems to perform given the moment. Also along the offense, the Commanders allowed the 10th most sacks in the NFL this past season, with 43 sacks allowed. So there obviously needs to be some improvements along the offensive line to help protect the future at the quarterback position. And then along the defensive side of the football, Washington's secondary allowed the 4th most passing yards in the entire NFL last season. So there absolutely needs to be some improvements on the defensive side of things, especially in the cornerbacks and safeties department. However, Washington, in my personal opinion, has a number of very good pieces, like I've already mentioned, and they have a very good opportunity to kind of take over the NFC East as a whole. The New York Giants are basically in a rebuild. Philadelphia has a lot of questions that they need to answer. And Dallas, heading in at least to this offseason, has no money to really play around with and keep players. In fact, letting a number of players go during this upcoming offseason heading into this new league year. So Washington right now has a very good opportunity to improve their roster, become a strong playoff level team, and potentially take over the division for some time to come. But they need a few things to go correct. They need a few things to fall into place for them, so to speak, and for them to basically take advantage of those opportunities. But do not fret, I do think there are a few players that Washington could very well be going after in this upcoming free agency and NFL draft that could very well change the fortunes of this franchise for at least the next few years. Walking into free agency, the Washington Commanders have a very, very strong opportunity to sign a number of big-time players, with $33 million available to them via overthecap.com. I think Washington is in the ballpark for a number of key players at key positions. Starting things off with the man in the thumbnail, safety Tyrann Mathieu, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Mathieu could very well bring a lot to this Washington Commanders locker room, a great leadership presence coming from a franchise that has won a championship very recently, has been in the playoffs every year that he has been a part of that franchise. And the dude can still hit the field, and he can ball. He can go out there and make plays. He has the ability to play down in the box and make some effective downhill tackles in the running game, but also fall back into coverage and cover up those very fast and versatile tight ends and take away underneath routes from shifty wide receivers. So Tyrann Mathieu, still very much so a valuable player going into this upcoming free agency, and pairing him up with the likes of Landon Collins, a hard-hitting safety, also very solid in coverage in his own right, could be just what this Commanders defense needs as far as veteran leadership as well as performance to help take this defense even more so over the top. A very strong pass rush being complemented with a very strong secondary. You can win a number of games based on just pure defensive talent. And if Washington can land Tyrann Mathieu, I think that's going to be chef's kiss, a great pickup. Another player I think Washington should be considering is going to be right tackle Trent Brown, formerly of the New England Patriots, coming off of his second stint. While he was on the field, even though he was dealing with a bit of an ankle injury this past season, while on the field, the running and the passing games both improved for the New England Patriots. Trent Brown still has plenty left in the tank and could be a very nice wall on the right side of the offensive line to help keep the future at the quarterback position clean and, keeping the jersey nice and burgundy or white or yellow, whatever color that Washington decides to suit up in. And on the other side of the offensive line, I think a nice pickup would be Eric Fisher, the left tackle formerly of the Indianapolis Colts this past season, as well as the Kansas City Chiefs. The former #1 overall pick has turned into a Pro Bowl level left tackle and is very savvy as far as pass protection as well as run protections. This past season, Indianapolis had the league's leading rusher in Jonathan Taylor, in no small part to the help of Eric Fisher. That offensive line for Indy was ridiculous. And honestly, if Washington can get their hands on any piece of that Indianapolis offensive line, I think it's going to be a win. It's going to be a success, opening up running lanes for guys like Antonio Gibson, as well as keeping, again, the future of the franchise, the future at quarterback clean and off of the ground. Eric Fisher, another offensive tackle I think is worth investing in. And finally, it's time to address the NFL draft. Washington is picking at pick 11, and all signs are pointing towards Washington looking at the draft as the future of the quarterback position for this team. I think there are a number of pretty solid quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft. Obviously, the #1 overall pick is very likely not going to be a quarterback, but now that we are, exiting the combine and now that we are heading towards draft day this upcoming April, quarterbacks are going to be more and more talked about as we get closer and closer. This isn't my favorite class, unfortunately, of quarterbacks. I think there are a number of solid guys, but I'm not in love with any of these guys so far. But if I'm the Washington Commanders, I do think quarterback is going to be in their future. At pick 11, if you aren't absolutely in love with the guy, I don't think they go quarterback at pick 11. However, in their day 2 picks, maybe, or even sliding back into the first round, I think quarterback Malik Willis out of Liberty could very well be an option, a very solid developmental piece. He has open field elusiveness that we haven't seen from every quarterback coming out of this draft. He has a very strong arm, but coming from a smaller conference, a smaller program out of Liberty University, there are obviously going to be some levels of learning curve when it comes to Willis's game transitioning to the NFL. A big time arm, as we've seen. He has accuracy, but he's not necessarily an over the middle thrower. He likes to throw a lot to the outside. So transitioning to the NFL, I mean, just, getting a little bit more comfortable, a little more confident, throwing over the middle, taking advantage of all the opportunities in front of you and not just going to your, designated read is going to be something that Willis has to develop in. Again, I don't necessarily love every quarterback in this year's draft. However, Washington does like these guys that have some mobility. They do like these guys, historically speaking, when they took Dwayne Haskins, that have big arms, right? Taylor Heineke, also quite a mobile quarterback as well, very elusive in the pocket, and Willis adds that extra dimension of being able to, make plays in the pocket as well as break out and make plays in the open field and keep defenses on their toes. I think Willis, again, could be a very solid pickup for Washington. It could be their future at the quarterback position. I don't know if I take him at pick 11. However, as we get closer and closer to the draft, we're going to hear more and more out of the media talking about quarterbacks. I think there is somebody who is very likely going to bite, and Washington could very well be that team. But with all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching this week's video. Of course, feel free to stick around and watch some more content. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. My name is Tristan Blake Rines. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Adios.